Hi! You're listening to the Coffee O'Clock podcast, the show that brings you joy and inspiration, with special guests from all around the world who have an amazing story and expertise to evolve your personal and professional life. I am your host, Burcu ONARANEL, the founder of Joy Marketing and Coaching. Make sure you grab your coffee and get ready to explore new ideas. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Another amazing podcast, The Coffee O'Clock. Today we have amazing guest, Verity Price. I am very honored and happy to have her on the show today because if you know me, you know that I love speaking, and she is the world champion of public speaking in 2021. She's a global speaker and coach. I want to welcome her first. Hi, welcome.
Hi, lovely to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to dive in your story, how you became a motivational global speaker and coach to others, and how you won the world championship. I think that's another amazing topic, but you also have different things that I want to talk. You help people find their voice and you help them tell their story and present with power. Can you share how you get into this speaking journey?
Oh, I think what I'm starting to see is I didn't choose speaking. Speaking chose me because I was terrified of speaking when I was a teenager. If I had to read an assembly at school, I would skip school. I didn't want to be on a stage. I was so afraid of all those eyes on me, of people judging me. And so I was actually very happy to choose a life that involved one-on-one conversations, but not on stage conversations. And then everything changed on my 20th birthday. I was sitting at a beach in Cape Town, thinking about the fact that I was 20 and I was studying psychology. And out of nowhere, I felt inspired to pick up a pen and start writing. And when I finished writing, it wasn't a poem. It was a song. There was a verse and a chorus and a verse and a chorus. And I thought, that's weird. I've never done that before. And these songs just kept coming. And with them came this little knocking, this little dream saying, maybe you're supposed to sing. And that was exciting, but it was also terrifying. And I actually got caught in what I call the tug of war between fears and dreams, which I think many people get caught in. And I got stuck there for years. I wanted to sing, I wanted to share my songs, but it was easier to just stay at home and not. And it actually took losing my father when I was 24 to give me that wake up call. Verity, life's short. Stop wasting time fearing instead of doing. And so I started singing. I got a singing coach. I started slowly building my confidence. And by 27, 28, I was ready to get on stage. I actually loved being on stage. I wasn't afraid of people anymore. And you're probably wondering, well, what has this got to do with speaking? So here's where it gets interesting. When I was 2 years into my career, I realized I needed an album. You know, it's not enough to just do live shows. So I started researching, recording that album, and I got back a lot of quotes, and it was going to cost the equivalent of $40,000 to record my album. I didn't have the money. South African music didn't sell very well. And that was where I started innovating. And I came up with an idea to ask people to buy my album before I recorded it. So to sell something that didn't exist.
Okay.
Now, when I tell people this story, they say, but Verity, that's called crowdfunding. And I go, yes, it is called crowdfunding. But in 2005, that was called crazy because no one had ever done it before. And that was when I started having to speak because I had to sell my idea. I had to go to business breakfasts and networking events and stand on stage and share a part of me, this dream that I had, and ask people to invest. And I learned as the more I did that and the more I saw it working and resonating with audiences, that's where I learned my first big lesson about speaking. And that is that your word creates your world. You know, when you're speaking about an idea and you've got big ideas and you've got a powerful message, when you come from your heart, that's when people start showing up to go along with you. So long story short, I didn't become a pop star. I recorded that album. 2,000 people bought it and I gave money away. But suddenly I was being asked to speak all around the world about innovation. And that's how it happened.
What was the challenging moment when you start speaking? What was the fear you had and how did you overcome?
So I think once I started speaking, the fears, I'd overcome them from when I was 20 and starting to try and sing and get starting with the singing. The thing that helped me overcome my fear was a coach, actually. I worked with a coach, a singing coach in America, in Florida. His name was Joe, and he was a retired Motown singer. He was a very eccentric chap. And I would go to him for singing lessons 5 times a week. I really wanted to become a good singer. And the first time I ever sang for Joe, he kind of looked at me and he went, Jared, I'm not going to teach you how to sing. I'm going to teach you how to be confident.
Mm.
And I was like, that's weird. How do you teach confidence? And Joe had a strange way of teaching it. He would turn up the music, turn down the music. He would clap at my face while I was singing. He'd invite neighbors in for tea. It was like, what is this man doing? And whenever I would get thrown and I would lose my way because he was distracting me, he would come right up close and he'd say, Verity, if things go wrong, just keep on. I was like, this is really strange. But I kept going for the lessons and I didn't really know if they were working. But when I returned to South Africa and I started singing professionally and eventually speaking professionally, things always go wrong on stage. The microphone does something strange, or PowerPoint stops working, the band makes a mistake. And he'd really taught me that that was okay. And I realized that what confidence is and what Joe taught me is that confidence is being okay with things not being okay. And so if you can step on stage going, I might forget my words, I might make a mistake, the slides might get stuck. So what? I can laugh, I can talk about it, I can just keep going. And so that's what shifted speaking for me, coupled with understanding that my word creates my world and that the message I have, if it's of value to the audience and if it can enhance their life in some way, what a privilege to get to share that. So that's the space I started coming from, and everything changed.
Amazing. And I want you to share a little bit more of how you met Toastmasters. I mentioned to my audience before, it's the club that really helped me to evolve as a speaker. It was a school, still a school for me to learn from others and be better at public speaking and communication in daily life too. It's not just professionally. I find that it's a very great place to improve your communication skills, your relationship skills too. How did you get across to Toastmasters and what it means to you?
Oh, Toastmasters was the happiest, unexpected change of my life. I'll put it that way. I came across Toastmasters in January 2011. My older sister Kay had joined the month before, and she said, please, will you come? I belong to this club. I'm learning to speak. I'm doing an icebreaker speech. And of course, I said, no, I'd love to come and support you. But I had no expectations when I walked into that meeting. And the first thing that hit me was the warmth of welcome that I received as a stranger and the support that all the members were pouring onto my sister because she was so scared of doing her first speech. And I remember just sitting there and getting this yes feeling. There was this, wow, there's something special happening here. And by the end of the meeting, when someone said to me, do you want to join? I said yes. Now, here's the thing, you don't know when a yes is about to change your life, especially, I'm joining a club. What could possibly change? Postmasters brought me a sense of community that was missing in my life at that point. I was working for myself. I didn't have a community. So being on a committee, serving with people, having a vision, it really added value. And then it pushed me to elevate my speaking skills, to really see how can I become the best speaker I can. But probably the most fulfilling part of all of it for me has been watching other people face their fears, find their voice, tell their stories, and really learn what Joe was teaching me through Toastmasters. It's a beautiful platform that teaches you to be okay with things not being okay, and then come back and try again and get better.
And yes, when you're on the stage, every time something happens, every time something goes wrong, either your words, like you said, or something doesn't work on the stage. I'm curious, what was the weirdest moment you had when you're on the stage? Like, did you completely go blind and forget your words? Like, what was the weirdest moment and how did you deal with it?
So probably the weirdest and worst moment that any speaker would want was many years ago. I was speaking at a big event. It's before I joined Toastmasters. And I had an opportunity to speak to 700 people about my album, to ask them to buy it. It was a great, great opportunity. And they'd given me one of those little headsets. So I felt I looked like Madonna. I felt like a real pop star. And I got this amazing welcome, and 700 people went wild. And I came running up the stairs. I felt so confident and I felt so excited to be there, and like nothing was going to stop me. And I come running up the stairs, and I get to the last stair, and I tripped and I sprawled
Oh,
face first in front of 700 people. Like, poof. And you just heard the whole audience go, like they were shocked. And I was winded. But what was incredible was that, and that was probably 3 years after my lessons with Joe, and his lesson was still in me. Like I was fine. I turned around and I looked at these horrified people and I said, well, folks, can only go up from here.
wow.
I laughed, they laughed. I kind of dusted myself off. I stood up and I shared my story from the heart. And it was such an incredible moment of going, the worst thing can happen. And if you're okay with it, and if you can laugh at yourself and go, oh dear, I've forgotten my words, and carry on, the audience loves you for it. So that was probably my worst, weirdest, but also most wonderful moment in speaking.
Yes, yes. Just the thing is, you have to remember that you need to be you at that moment and turn it to your advantage, like
Yeah,
your coach Joe said. It's amazing.
100%.
So now I am very curious, and probably my audience are curious too. How did you get into the public speaking world championship journey? And when did you start first? And when did you win? Well, I already said you won in 2021, but how long was the journey?
Okay. So my first contest was in 2012, and they said they were having a contest at my club, so I entered. Hey, my sister also entered. She was still
Okay.
terrified of speaking, so she really worked on her speech, and I was a little bit arrogant. I was a professional speaker already. So I wrote a speech the night before, and I thought this will be easy. My sister beat me at club, and that was quite humiliating for my ego. But what was incredible was she didn't just beat me at club. She went on to become the Southern African champion, the district champion. And it was the sixth speech she'd ever written. She's actually a very good storyteller, but she would suffer from a lot of anxiety. But the sixth speech took her to the world semifinals. And I watched that whole journey, and it was inspiring, and it was a little overwhelming and daunting. And she came second in her semi-final. And the man who beat her, Ryan Avery, became world champion 2 days later. So it was extraordinary to watch. And to be honest, it was so overwhelming to see actually what that contest was about. I didn't enter in 2013. I didn't enter in 2014. 2015, I entered again, and I got as far as coming third in my division. And at that point, my ego just said, no, you are not doing these. This is embarrassing. You are a professional speaker and you're losing at Toastmasters. So I never entered again. I was a district champion for evaluations. I came second for humorous and for impromptu, but I never entered the prepared speaking contest again. And in fact, I left Toastmasters in 2019. So it wasn't something I was ever going to do, if I'm perfectly honest. And then COVID hit. And I rejoined Toastmasters to help a club that was struggling, my club, and got into it. And then I watched the virtual summit in 2020 when Mike Carr became the world champion. And I looked at what he did with the Zoom screen and I was like, gosh, that's amazing. I didn't know you could speak like that. And then I've had this thing of like, maybe I should enter next year. I thought, no, forget about that. And about a week later, I did my icebreaker at my club because I was starting the Pathways journey and you have to do a first speech, even though I was a distinguished Toastmaster. And it was a story of how my mum used to teach me to leave the world better than I found it. And I got off the meeting and I was thinking about the speech and about the message. And I thought, gosh, that could be a contest speech. And 2 seconds after thinking that, a voice said, you could become world champion. And I was like, that is, but I got goosebumps everywhere. And in that moment, I said, I'm entering. And so I started working on my speech for the 2021 contest 3 months before they announced club contests. And I entered with this bizarre premonition that I was going to win it. And I mean, that is not guaranteed. It's such a tough contest, but no one from Africa had ever won it. So I was on a mission, and only 5 women had ever won it in 80 years. So I entered with this single-minded focus to go, how far can I take this? And I worked harder than I've worked at anything in my life. It was 7 months of like blinkered dedication to writing my speeches, watching world champions, reading every book I could read, visiting clubs, taking feedback. It was intense. And it was absolutely unbelievable and surreal when that premonition from November 2020 became a reality in August 2021 when I won the world championship.
I now feel the goosebumps while listening to you. It
So
is
weird.
hard work. I know it is such a hard work and such an amazing confidence too. It's not easy, and people judge you like very badly. They judge you for everything and anything, but taking the good ones and applying to your speech and make it better is what's the key actually. But you know better. Tell us more how you improve your speaking, your speech. You started, entered the contest, and you joined different clubs and you receive feedback. How did you make yourself stay sane with all those noises and stay focused on your message and what really works with you, what feels right for you?
It's very challenging if you open yourself up to a lot of feedback. So I discovered very quickly you need to have 1 or 2 voices in your corner who you trust. So I had Kay, my sister, my husband also, he's not part of Toastmasters, so he would always give me a good outside perspective. And then I had Lance Miller, the 2005 world champion, who I paid to coach me. And so those were the voices that I would 100% trust. And then if I opened it up to other people, I would look for threads or themes that was coming through in the feedback. Sometimes someone would say something and I would just get a yes, that's very good feedback. I'm going to do that. But other times I was taking it in. And then after the meeting, I would look at all the pieces and I'd go, is there a thread here or a theme? And if I was getting consistent themes coming through from different people, then I would go back to the speech and going, how do I change it? How do I give them what they're looking for? How do I lose this bit that's not working? So it was 32 versions of each speech that I ended up writing. My world champion speech, I went through about 6 or 7 different message statements. The story didn't change much, but really going, what am I trying to say here? You know, if I had a sentence, what is it? And it went from be grateful, be happy, look for the good, change the way you look at things. And eventually it got down to write a different story. So maybe that will give listeners and viewers a sense of Don't trust that the first thing you've got is your most powerful. If you're looking for a diamond, you've got to be prepared to dig through a lot of dirt to find the gem. And that's what the contest taught me.
Yes, yes, absolutely right. And let's talk about the celebration part. Share with us your first moment when you heard you are the champion of public speaking. What did you feel? How was the environment? Can you share a little bit of that celebration
Yes.
moment?
Oh, so I probably had, I'll probably be the only ever completely virtual world champion. It was the only year where it started virtually from the beginning to the end. And so for 7 months, I competed on my own in a room to black screens, no audiences, no interaction. And it was very, very lonely. And by the time we got to August of 2021 in South Africa, lockdown was kind of coming to an end, and we were allowed to have a maximum of 50 people at a gathering. They were slowly changing the rules.